So this I will take no credit. It is going to be Manto's session and the session of a story called Toba Teksi. I'd first like to say a word about the panelists. Urvashi Batalia, of course, is well known, a writer, a publisher, and one of the advisors of this festival. Prasoon Joshi ji, of course, we all know for his beautiful lyrics, his way with words, and Achia Anzi, who is from Israel, and he's working these days in the JNU, and he has translated Manto's stories into Hebrew.
Oh.
Just one word about Manto when I go directly to the story. Someone was asking me about Manto the man. So I said, as far as the past century goes, Manto is not just a man, he was a metaphor. He was a metaphor for the 20th century. And we are celebrating his birth centenary this year. And something had to be done on Manto, and it was very innovative of the organizers, Namita, who decided that she doesn't want the usual Manto great writer. She wants to take a story which focuses on the political human problem with borders and boundaries, displacement, which continues till date. Toba Tek Singh. Tek Singh was the name of a good man in Pakistan long ago, who had a village by a pond called Toba. Since he would let the, passers-by rest there, have water from the pond, give them food, let them sleep, the village came to be known as Toba Tek Singh. After that, it became a small town, and after the partition, I believe it's now a full-fledged district. And Toba Tek Singh is the last story of Saadat Hasan Manto, published a few months before he died. And it is also known as his magnus opus. It is a story which is set in a mental asylum and moves out of it only at the end. And Manto himself was given to deep depression. Anyone writing so truthfully of the harsh reality around him cannot remain sane as we would understand. And several times he lived in the mental asylum after the partition of the two countries. And this story, we have the drama of the partition reenacted in the mental asylum. 2 years after partition, suddenly the news comes that the Hindu and Sikh lunatics in the mental asylum are to be sent to India. And when this comes, the inmates of the mental asylum are very, very disturbed. They are used to that space and they don't know. Yet, in panic, they enact all kinds of things. One lunatic says, Pakistan Zindabad, with such enthusiasm while he's having a bath, that he's found lying unconscious in a pool of water. Another one says, I know what Pakistan is. That's a place where you make cutthroat razors. Another one says, I'm Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And in response, a Sikh inmate says, I am Master Tara Singh. And the asylum authorities declare them both very dangerous and put them in separate cells. So this is the story and how it unfolds. Our speakers will give their perception of the story and how it is so relevant to our times. First of all, I'd like Prasoon Joshi ji to recite a few lines he wrote on the story and then talk about the story. And
yeah, actually, these are not the lines I wrote about Manto ji or Toba Tek Singh. But these are the lines I wrote when Ayodhya verdict had come. And I felt that this is quite relevant, especially the binarism of this entire situation, where you are asked to choose one thing and decisions are taken on your behalf. I feel that this reflects the same sentiment. So I'll just read it aloud. किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है, कहीं मंदिर की परछाई, कहीं मस्जिद का साया है। न तब पूछा था हमसे, न तब पूछा था हमसे, और ना पूछने आए। हमेशा फैसले करके हमें यूं ही सुनाया है, किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। हमें फुर्सत कहां रोटी की गोलाई के चक्कर से, हमें फुर्सत कहां रोटी की गोलाई के चक्कर से। न जाने किसका मंदिर है, न जाने किसकी मस्जिद है, न जाने कौन उलझाता है सीधे सच्चे धागों को, न जाने किसकी साजिश है, न जाने किसकी ये जिद है। अजब सा सिलसिला है, जाने ये किसने चलाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है, कहीं मंदिर की परछाई, कहीं मस्जिद का साया है। न तब पूछा था हमसे, और न अब पूछने आए। हमेशा फैसले करके हमें यूं ही सुनाया है। वो कहते हैं तुम्हारा है, जरा तुम एक नजर डालो। वो कहते हैं बढ़ो मांगो, जरूरी है न तुम टालो। मगर अपनी जरूरत तो है बिल्कुल ही अलग इससे। जरा ठहरो, जरा सोचो, हमें सांचों में मत ढालो। बताओ कौन ये शोला मेरे आंगन में लाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है। अगर हिंदू में आंधी है, अगर तूफान मुसलमान है, तो आओ आंधी तूफान यार बन के कुछ नया कर दे। तो आओ एक नजर डालें अहम से कुछ सवालों पर। कई कोने अंधेरे हैं, मशालों को दिया कर दें। अब असली दर्द बोलेंगे जो सीनों में छुपाया है। किसी ने कुछ बनाया था, किसी ने कुछ बनाया है।
Very, very beautifully said and very moving. Prasoonji, from here, I would like you to go to Manto and his fiction.
See, especially when we are talking about the story, and what impresses me about this story, everything Manto had ever written, I loved it. Whether it's, the characters he has etched out, a Saugandhi in front of you, or Mozel. I mean, the characters he has, and in this particular story, the character, the central character, Vishal, all the character, he focuses and etched them out so well, as if it's him. You do not know how much of his personal pain is reflected. The word Anubhut Satya, the first-hand experience, is always seen in his writing. I always felt as if he has gone through it himself. Otherwise, the kind of vivid imagery, the kind of, his writing is so tactile. I don't think you can get that without have gone through the whole thing, situation yourself. In this situation, the fact that he is, I think we often also get swayed away with the plot, because his plot is so shocking and so mesmerizing, it's so big that we often ignore his craft. And I would like us to actually concentrate a little bit on his craft today and see how he portrays a situation, how he lets you smell even the sweat of the character. I think that probably gets sort of ignored, because the subjects are, the ideas he brings on the table are so revolutionary, so shocking, that most of the time we are talking about them. In this case, the plot, that, there are mad people talking about something which is so full of sanity, is the contradiction. And I think he has, jolted us with this plot to begin with. And then the kind of language which is used there, which she just narrated part of it, in all the characters speaking in this story. And the overall culmination, the no man's land sort of, resolution of it, everything is a masterpiece. It's something which I don't think can be written again and again. And this story, I feel, also because this story is something which is politically relevant, but there is so many other things which he has written, because they were, objectionable or uncomfortable, we don't discuss that. This becomes the most discussed story. I don't think that this is his best work. I personally feel this is, because it's socially so relevant and everybody feels very comfortable discussing this story, that's why this is discussed more. But there are a lot of his work which we feel very uncomfortable discussing, that's why we don't bring them up. But there are some other masterpieces he has written, which is, and he's also not trying to be an evangelist. He's not trying to be someone who's trying to change the world. He always accepted that. I'm never wanting to change the world. I am portraying as it is. What मैं उस समाज को क्या नंगा करूंगा जो है ही नंगा और मैं उसको बस कपड़े पहनाने की कोशिश नहीं करता. That's what he used to say. And that is what, is so evident in his writing. I think you can probably talk more about it as we
You've
go
said
along.
very well. And Prasoonji raised the question of choices. See, Manto himself had to make a very painful choice. Born in Samrala in Punjab, schooled in Amritsar, and then very much a Bombay man. And once the riots broke, his best friend, Sham, came from the other side of the border. And they're listening to someone who's come from the other side of the border, and they're saying so-and-so killed so-and-so and so on. Is Hindu ko maar diya. So when Manto turns to his best friend and says, the best friend is very angry. He says, I feel like killing a Musliman. So Manto says, hearing all this, could you kill me? So Sham says, probably yes. And this becomes a point in which he decides that he's to go to, to the land which represents the religion that he was born to. And he's never happy there. He's never happy there. In his biographical account, we see that he's longing for Sham. Sham comes, stays at the Falatis Hotel. He's reliving all that. And this story in particular is written a few years after the partition. He died in 55. This story was written and published in 1955. And very pertinently, the character of the story, Bishan Singh, is a Sardar. He's taken because the open battle during the carnage of the partition was between the Sikhs and the Muslims, two martial races. And he's taken Bishan Singh. And Bishan Singh comes through as one of the most lovable characters which fiction has produced. And Bishan Singh is in the mental asylum for 15 years. When he was brought by his relatives there, his daughter was 1 year old. Now she comes to visit him. She's 15, very pretty. Roop Kaur is her name. And then suddenly, no one is coming from Toba Tek Singh to visit him. And when the news spreads that he is to be sent to India, very worried, he turns from one person to another, that where is Toba Tek Singh? Is it in India or is it in Pakistan? I have to be in Toba Tek Singh. And by that time, one lunatic has styled himself as God. So he goes to him and says, God, tell me, where is Toba Tek Singh? So the man thinks and he says, no, not India, it's in Pakistan. At this he says, he's not fair enough. If he had been a Hindu person who had become God, he would have listened to me and kept Toba Tek Singh in India. Yeah. So in all this, and very crazily the government is doing both sides, calculations, statistics, so many madmen are to be brought here, and they're to cross and come to India. And in the story also has some asides. There are two Anglo-Indian lunatics, inmates of the mental asylum. They are very worried, what will happen now? Will we get our bread and butter and breakfast? Or do we have to eat the Indian chapati, Things have changed. Bloody Indian chapati. So this is the power of the story, and it unfolds as we go along. I would like to ask Akhiya what brought him to the stories of Manto, and to Manto and his stories, and Toba Tek Singh in particular.
Okay, I think first of all it's got to do with the fascination from Urdu literature. And I think Manto is definitely one of the best writers in Urdu in the 20th century. Moreover, I think the stories of Manto are very relevant to what is happening in Israel, in Palestine. So I think one of the idea of the people who want to publish the book is to give another aspect to the conflict between Israel and Palestine in literature. Yes.
So when did you start this project on translating Manto?
Translating Manto, wow. 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Even more, I started reading Manto before that, and then I was translating for my own, and then the idea of a book came up, and it's still going on.
And the Toba Tek Singh in particular, what was your feeling while reading it, translating it, and how has it come through in?
Okay, Toba Tek Singh, maybe how it came up in Hebrew, I can't say. But Toba Tek Singh is fascinating. Maybe it's not the best story. I don't know which one of the stories of Manto is the best. But Toba Tek Singh is interesting because there is something very personal, I believe, about him. Manto was looking for no man lands. He didn't want to be, he wanted to be in India and Pakistan at the same time, or to be nowhere. And the only place available was there at the border, exactly the place where Toba Tek Singh was lying at the end of the story. So I believe that the idea of being in no man's land, it was, you had to be crazy for fulfilling this dream and desire not to belong anywhere, which is the desire, I believe, of Manto.
In fact, Toba Tek Singh has proved so popular in the past few decades, I would say, past 3 decades. It has been enacted on stage any number of times. People like M.K. Raina, Atamjeet have done it vis-a-vis the Kashmir problem, the Punjab problem. Toba Tek Singh becomes a story to be, to tell the people the folly of communalism, separation. Here comes something, when the story is staged, very often the audience is laughing. Because, there are people who are insane acting on the stage. And very often there is criticism also that, how come people are laughing? What's with the story? What my feeling is that here, you see, Manto follows the craft of hurting till you laugh and laughing till you are hurt. The Bishan Singh does not speak anything. For the 15 years, he keeps saying this, mumbo jumbo line, Uppar de gurgur di anexi, di bethyana, di mung di dal, di lalten. And as the story progresses, the last phrase changes. Uppar di gurgur di anexi, de bethyana, de mung di dal of the government of Pakistan. And when that God refuses to say that Toba Tek Singh will go to India, he suddenly remembers the Sikh scriptures. Uppar de gurgur di anexi di mung di dal di Guruji da Khalsa, Guruji di Fateh, jo bole so nihal, Sat Sri Akal. And then Manto explains what he wanted to say was, you don't answer my prayers because you are a Muslim God. Had you been a Sikh God, you would have been more of a sport. Urvashi, I would like you to now, I was giving you some rest because you've done so many sessions in a row.
Thank you.
So I would like you to come to the story, and you have done momentous work on partition in oral histories, the other side of silence. And how do you approach this story, and what does it mean to you?
Well, in a session on Manto and Toba Tek Singh, which has got I don't know how many thousand people here, I have a terrible confession to make. Most of the time, I don't like Manto. Now, let me just nuance that a little bit. The story Toba Tek Singh and the story Thanda Gosht are 2 singular exceptions to this.
Okay.
Why don't I like him? Because because it's very disturbing. His work is very disturbing. So maybe like is not really the right word to use. Also because in a strange way, I find him quite misogynistic. Women in Manto's stories, and again Thanda Gosht is an exception, are really so much pieces of flesh and meat, almost. But these 2 stories...
Mosel.
Also in
Mosel.
Thanda Gosht.
No,
Mosel as well. Right.
Mosel is
Yeah,
is
she's
an
the hero.
exceptional
Okay.
woman.
All right. Okay.
Which is also very attractive and very...
But one of these... But I'd like to take Toba Tek Singh to actually as an oblique reference to talk about some things. The story described in Toba Tek Singh is very real. The Indian and Pakistani governments post-partition did meet and did take a decision to exchange the people who were housed inside mental institutions in the two countries, and the exchange was made on the basis of religion. So it is completely, the story is completely truthful to this experience and sheds light on aspects of the exchange and of the migration and of the violence of partition which are not really talked about because they deal with people who are on the margins in different ways or who are minorities in different ways. So not only did they take the decision to exchange people housed inside mental institutions, and these statistics found their way into newspapers, and many real-life stories like this happen, but they also took a decision, for example, to ask people of alternative sexualities, like hijras, to make the choice between India and Pakistan. So again, a completely off-the-fringe lunatic choice for people for whom the boundaries of gender, boundaries of identity lie at gender, to be forced to choose on the basis of religion. So these kind of mad, within quotes, mad choices were enforced, and they, again, the word choice is wrong because they were more or less forced on people. Then, you know, one of the things that Manto's story did for me as a researcher on partition, it helped me to visualize the border, because borders are very strange things. Most of the time, they don't actually exist in terms of an actual physical structure. The border between India and Pakistan is a fenced border, but only in some places. In many places, it's just fields and territory in between. But the border at Wagah is actually a place which does actually have a no man's land in between. And normally you cannot step into that no man's land. It is between the rangers of the Indian Army and the rangers of the Pakistani Army who control and police and man that border. But you can enter it when you are crossing the border on foot, which is something that has happened only sort of recently. And I crossed the border on foot for the first time last year, and I was powerfully reminded of this story, because actually, even though I was crossing the border in what is theoretically called peacetime, and there was no fear or threat or anything at all, nothing of the kind that Bishan Singh experienced at all, nevertheless, the sense of menace and the sense of desolation and the sense of being, if you like, in a no man's land, I don't know how else to say it, was very real. And it's something that he creates in this story so powerfully, which, as you say, I mean, you talk of his writing as a whole being a metaphor, but I think this particular story is the metaphor for the nonsense that we have created around borders, and for the kind of ways in which we have rendered those borders so intractable, while people's identities are not like that at all. They cross those borders in the most sort of, overlapping and intermeshing ways, and yet we've created those borders and made them, really turned them into no man's land, and left them only at the moment in the possession of the army. So in a sense, the ways in which so many people at partition were left with this sense of desolation and this sense of loss of belonging. And also, one of the things that this story does for me is really powerfully question what is the meaning of the nation. Because for Bishan Singh, again, his home, his village is
His Watan.
Yeah, is Watan, and what is his life. No? फिर उसके ऊपर you get this structure called a nation state, and suddenly that is what you're supposed to owe allegiance to, when nothing of that is actually real to you. So this is a dilemma that continues in our times. And so Toba Tek Singh, again, so very strongly raises questions relating to that, which continue and which remain. So despite my shocking Nirupama, and I didn't dare tell her before I came on this panel that, you know, I'm not actually such a Manto fan, but there are exceptions.
No, I'm not shocked, because the feminist reading of Manto is very often the sexual exploitation of women that Manto shows is bound to raise this
But
kind
he's
of...
realistic.
He's realistic.
He's not,
He portrays what is there
they're not
in
fictional.
Yeah,
society.
it's the same things that you said before about him. If
because
the
he-
world
he-
is
and
Nanda,
he
so-
himself said at one place that, you know, if you find my writing hateful, unbearable, remember that all this is there in the society and that's what I'm writing. But a rereading of Manto from the feminist point of view, I think...
But it's not that the sexual part that, I mean, it's not that's disturbing. In fact, in Tanda Gosht, it's a very
again the same, yeah.
powerful story. It's a very strong story, and it's a very true story, because the exploitation of women was not limited to any particular religion. But I don't know. It's
No,
a
I'm not just mentioning partition. Even his stories of the red light areas
Yes.
and others, you know, wherever.
But you know, he
But
will-
then, even from the red light area, he brings Kali Salwar,
yeah.
and
it's
which
the
shows
utmost
to
honesty
women,
with which he
to-
portrays.
to sex workers who want to celebrate Eid.
Yeah.
And one does not have, one wants to wear a black salwar, black satin salwar, the other one wants to wear some beautiful earrings. So the pimp gets one woman's earrings and the others,
Gets mixed
and
up.
that's how they find. And Muharram, not Eid, Muharram I think is the...
And Saugandhi is another kind of Hatak is the story.
Now
If
coming
you-
back
if you
to-
just listen to the story.
Which one?
Hatak.
Sugandhi.
Sugandhi.
Hatak, yes, yes.
And this is again the feminist, since you've raised that, the fact that the character gets rejected by one of the customers. And she's almost like ruling there, you know, like she's used to being, you know, liked by everyone. And you almost feel that she's completely professional about it. She's much over and above rejection or selection and stuff like that. But this this is the thing which he has faced the entire story, based the entire story on. From the car window, the guy said, and that gets stuck in her head. And it makes her almost mad. That how could someone reject you?
The seat has rejected.
And yes, and then like she keeps going on and on and on and looking at herself and in the mirror and getting into the psychology of that woman. I think we've been unfair if you think that he's tried to purposely hit upon women or been sort of partial or biased.
And-
I think he's not.
And then what Sugandhi does, you see, she has a policeman as one of her
Yeah.
paramours or whatever, and she suddenly starts questioning that relationship.
That Madhu.
Madhu,
Yeah.
that, you know, he says he's my lover, but basically he comes to me to take my money, has a family, sleeps with me one night, goes away.
And insults the guy in the end and throws him out.
She throws him out and she brings a little puppy,
Yeah.
which is all, you know, has a skin problem and all, and places him next to her and says, any day better than any man. That is what Sugandhi does. But from there, Urvashi left on the question of no man's land and the experience, her experience at Wagah. Aki, I would like you to tell us about the borders that you have experienced.
In Israel or in India?
Israel.
Because the madness around borders are still going on in India. And if you
That's true.
mention the border next to Amritsar, so you still have, I think every day, people are coming and shouting Zindabad, Hindustan, Zindabad, and all these kind of things, which I think that Manto could create another story
another
from
story,
it. So it's still going on.
No, that of course, that pain we have seen and we keep seeing it. But I was asking about your experience of Israel, which many of us don't know.
Okay, the story of Israel, I think, is very painful for, I can't say about Palestinians, but definitely most Israelis. Borders are part of our life. I think the images that I remember from my childhood are barbed wire, sandbags. In normal places, you don't need to go to Palestine to see it. But I think that so much been said about it, and you know, the best way about, the best thing about Manto is that you can laugh about it. But especially in a situation like in Israel, that I can't see any solution in the meantime. So, what else can I?
No, no, no. In fact, the border at Amritsar, the Wagah border, which Urvashi talked about, every evening they have beating of the retreat,
Yeah.
where the flags are brought down, and so people from both sides are allowed to stand in their respective areas and through the gates
Watch it.
look at each other, look at each other through the gates. And once I was there, and you will find any number of Punjabis breaking down also. As one Punjabi confessed, seeing the history of, our poor history of killing all too soon, that Punjabis are very brutal, but they're also very emotional. You see the killing at the time of the partition, the worst of it was as seen through, done by the Punjabis. Yet when they reach the borders, they will weep, seeing the other side. And I remember once the policemen are posted there, and someone was trying to wave. So the policeman says, "Uncha, uncha. Haath nahi hilana, muskurana nahi. You are not to wave your hand, you are not to smile. Just keep looking at each other." So I asked him, I said, "Why can't you do that?" He says, no, the smugglers come and do this. They are making, signs that send 3 bales across. And there was a very pretty girl on the other side. She did salam to me. So stealthily, I also did salam too. I returned a salam. So I recalled that in a story, and I called it Smuggled Salams at Wagah.
Nirupama, can I just add to what you were saying? I went to this border ceremony about 20 years ago, when it was very, very military, but there were about maximum 40, 50 people watching it on one side of the border and on the other side of the border, and in silence and not allowed to wave or anything like that, just what you're describing. I went to it again 2 years ago. There were 5,000 people there at least, from all corners of India. It was like a tourist attraction. And on the other side, there must have been 2,000 or something like that. The ceremony, the military ceremony of it, which I was critical of 20 years ago, but which to me now seemed like something nostalgic and really good, something very nice and moving, that has completely disappeared. Outside, there are vendors who are selling, it's like a mela. Yeah. They're selling food, DVDs, sweets, the whole works. And the 5,000 people in there, they've made a stadium. You can climb up on the stadium. And the ceremony starts with a major domo who is employed. I could see the Indian side of the thing, who is employed and who comes out of the quarters of the military and the rangers and exhorts people to shout and, Hindustan, Zindabad, and et cetera, slogan shouting is going on at top decibel, and then Bollywood songs are played, Mere Desh Ki Dharti, and all of that, And these are replied to from the other side, and then in the middle bit where actually the gates are, they give young women and men the flag, the Indian flag, which they hold and run right up to the gate, flail it about and run back. And on the other side, there are Pakistani students who hold the Pakistani flag and run right up to the gate and run back. And it's a completely crazy Bollywoodization of this ceremony. The only really funny moment I found in it at one time was that this major domo and this major domo on the Pakistani side got their timing wrong. So there was a point at which he said, Hindustan, and from the other side came the shout, Zindabad. And I thought that was really lovely.
This partition, I would just add to something that experience I am having these days, writing a film on the life of the athlete Milkha Singh, which you just finished writing. And I heard his experiences. Here is a man who has so much to say about partition. He lost his entire family, all got sort of massacred in front of him. as a child when he's 7, 8 years old. And he runs from there, you know, and you hear the stories from him and who's lost almost everything there. And then you realize that what on earth have been done. And this is something which nobody thought about, that so many complex emotions exist with partition. I do not come from Punjab, and I have a couple of relatives though, now married to, my wife's family is from there. So I heard and learned it later, but in my childhood I was not exposed to it. And now you understand the pain which has gone into it, and what kind of suffering, and especially in Milkha Singh's case, I mean, so much of pain and angst that made him run. I mean, when he used to run, he used to think of those scenes, and we're trying to do it, I'm not trying to reveal the film to you, but it was amazing when he explained how he used to run and why he used to run. And those are the kind of emotions people have, the intensity, and then you believe that, then you realize that this story is so relevant when you ask people to make choices and they actually don't want to make choices. And this is so relevant for today's politics. When you say this is one party, this is another party, and I say I don't like both, what do I do? So you're supposed to make a choice. No, if not this, then this. Say both are bad. Where do I go then? So that's where he's talking about no man's land. Can't we have both, or can't we have none? And that world where probably those choices are tough to make, and we're not supposed to make those choices at times, we don't want to make those choices. So I think this story is going to be relevant forever. If not partisan, then politics. If not politics, then life.
In life, yeah, that's
In fact, what you say that Manto wanted to be in no man's land,
Yes.
you know, this is reflected in a earlier pre-partition story set in Bombay in a urinal. He goes to a urinal and reads the graffiti there.
Yes, yes, yes.
And one says an indecent thing about the mother of Pakistan. Another graffiti says an indecent thing about the mother of Hindustan. And he corrects them that both of you rascals, you are doing it to your mother, and that's Hindustan. Because he did not want that kind of a division and that choice. So Toba Tek Singh, of course, becomes the bigger statement when all is lost or won. It comes there. I would like to read just a small passage to come back to the story. A few days before the exchange was to take place, one of Bishan Singh's Muslim friends from Toba Tek Singh came to see him. The first time in 15 years. Bishan Singh looked at him once and turned away until a guard said to him, "This is your old friend Fazal Deen. He has come all the way to meet you." Bishan Singh looked at Fazal Deen and began to mumble something. Fazal Deen placed his hand on his friend's shoulder and said, "I have been meaning to come for some time to bring you news. All your family is well and has gone to India safely. I did what I could to help. Your daughter Roop Kaur," and then comes the pause, there are 3 dots. He hesitated. "She is safe too," 3 dots, in India. So obviously something has happened to Roop Kaur, but this story is a latter day story. The partition stories, we have everything. We have Kholdo, we have everything very naked and there in front of the eye. Here Roop Kaur, the treatment of Roop Kaur is a little more subtle, but very painful in that. We are just told that she's a very pretty, fair girl, and then the neighbor is saying that she is safe, and then dots in India. So she's either been abducted or she's, missing. Now, Akhiya, what would you do? Would you like to read a passage from Urdu? We would like that. Small passage.
To read? Wow. I have to?
Maybe the end. That would be
The
very
end.
nice.
Okay, I will try, but if I'm making a mess, you will excuse me, no? So Toba Tek Singh, I will call him. He's standing there and he's unable to decide where he needs to go, or to Pakistan or to Hindustan. It's just the end of the story. And Manto is writing, उसे बहुत समझाया गया कि देखो अब तोबा टेक सिंह हिंदुस्तान में चले गया है, अगर नहीं गया तो उससे फौरन वहाँ भेज दिया जाएगा। Magaravo Namana. And then he's saying how he's standing there, and they decided to leave him to stand there exactly in the middle because it doesn't matter that a man is standing there. And after some time, Toba Tek Singh fall down exactly in the middle, and this is the end of the story. Idhar udhar se kahi officer after he fell down दौड़े हुए आए और देखा कि वो आदमी जो 15 बरस तक दिन रात अपनी तंगों पर खड़ा रहा उनके मुंह लेता था इधर खारदार तारों के पीछे हिंदुस्तान था उधर वैसे ही तारों के बीच पाकिस्तान दरमिया में जमीन के उसी टुकड़े पर जिसका कोई नाम नहीं था तोबा टेक सिंह पड़ा था
In fact, in this story, Bishan Singh's name changes to Toba Tek Singh.
Yes.
Well, how do you feel? Why has Manto done this?
See, Manto has played with his name, and I think later on somebody tried to find out where Toba Tek Singh is. Toba is actually a pyau जिसे कहते हैं, पानी जहाँ से. And I think Tek Singh was someone who used to give water to people and वो करता पिलाता था लोगों को पानी. So I think the confusion with name also, the fact that you can't find it is also telling, and the whole point Manto is trying to make. In fact, the language also, the gurgurdi, the laltain, all that is actually he's trying to tell you the confusion which the state was going through. You know, and he's reflecting that through various things. You know, that's why I'm saying often we do not look at the craft, and you forget that, you know, everything is so carefully selected and chosen. Yeah. You know, the name Toba Tek Singh you can't find now. They couldn't find it, and where is it gone? Kind of thing.
No, Toba Tek Singh is very much there.
Okay.
Toba Tek
That's
Singh is
what
now
I
a
read.
district in Pakistan.
But the beauty also of the name, the fact that it's a name of a place, but then it become a name of a man,
person,
that he
yeah.
has
Becomes
to
the name of a
shift from
person.
place to place.
And also it is in
So-
one place in Pakistan, many names were changed. Like new names were given, Hindu Sikh names were.
Yeah.
But this name continues still because probably Toba Tek Singh, you see it's very difficult to change the name of a village or a town. Near Chandigarh we have a place called Ropar, which would mean Ropar. So they've tried to change it any number of times to Roopnagar, but it
doesn't
stays
change.
Ropar. But what is interesting, as you point out, that the name of a place becomes the name of the man. And I would see, Urvashi, you would tell me, I would see it as a story of resistance. How do you see it? Do you see it as a story?
No, I agree. I think it is a story of resistance, and it's a very strong story of resistance in the mind of a very sane man who is seen to be an insane man, but actually it's because the whole world is turned upside down, and his resistance to what is being imposed upon not only him but everybody comprises in that thing of refusing to move from there, refusing to accept either nation. So it's very much a story of resistance. Not only that, but you know, his resistance, it's like when you mentioned, I mean, those three ellipses after talking about his daughter is talked about. See, many of the women, and I know that this is a post-partition story, but it obviously relates to that experience. Many of the women who were abducted and raped at the time of partition and then found, recovered, and Toba Tek Singh or Bishan Singh's daughter could be one of those because she is now in India 5 years later, and that's around the time that the recovery operation actually ends. It ends in 1954. So many of the women who were found were then, you know, their families refused to take them back because by now they felt they had been polluted by sex with the men of the other religion, and many were housed in ashrams. And the anger that they had inside them for the double dislocation that they faced often took the form of the kind of protest and resistance that Bishan Singh makes. They refused to speak all their lives. You know, I remember one of the women in the Karnal ashram, the silence was her way of protesting. So this is very much a story of resistance, and obviously he was familiar with,
What was happening?
yes, with
And that Kholdo is a portrayal of what he sort of, in a very Manto style, sort of shocks you in the end, with the father encountering what, in a very, very unusual way, he sort of lets you know what she has gone through. So I think he has some amazing way of registering everything he has said. I don't think if you've read Manto's story once, it's impossible to forget it. It's impossible to take it out of your mind. That's how he registered it. And also, over the years, you don't find many other meanings out of it. There's another thing. About literature, you say, more you read, more less it opens and more meanings come. No, one meaning, very, very clear intention. Right in the first, reading, you'll get it. If you don't get it, you'll never get it. That's how it is.
Yes, it is, he writes straight.
It's right straight.
He doesn't, and this is
I
also because he was a journalist.
Yes. He has that
He
journalistic
was a
quality about him.
journalist and a script writer, of course, dialogue writer. But he goes straight to it, and the stories are not very long,
Yes.
the short stories.
Absolutely.
No, I was just going to say that not liking the stories of a writer and finding them disturbing and finding them misogynistic doesn't mean you
No, no,
don't
no, no, I'm not-
appreciate
I'm
the
not at all.
writer.
No, that is answered.
You would have probably done more. I would like you to ask a question. I sometimes feel there's an influence of Mopasa on him. What do you have to say about it?
Could be. See, I am a total Manto fan. So I don't even see, I think like Manto. He wrote his own epitaph saying that.
I know. I
Yeah.
know God was a better storyteller, or I am.
So, kaha Maupassant beech mein lana? It is straight between God and Manto. No, I'm just.
No. That's a fan talking, of course.
And there are a lot of people who are here for Manto. I'm sure they want to ask some questions from you, from Urvashi, from Akia. Yes, please.
This is a question for Asiya Anjay, our guest from Israel. Do you see any similarity between Yehuda Amichai, the great poet from Israel, and Manto? Will you elaborate? Thank you.
Wow, Yehuda Amichai. Yehuda Amichai is a poet. I would say, I don't think Yehuda Amichai, if I would think about somebody like Yehuda Amichai, it would be Miraji, but I don't think there are two similar. Yehuda Amichai is a person that went through the experiences of army, fighting, and he has this very dull, not musical way of expressing himself in a very dry and powerful manner. Never trying to shock like Manto. Manto is always trying to create a very strong emotion. And the impact, I believe, of Yehuda Amichai is the dryness almost. And the quietness. Manto is a person, if he will come, he will be the center of the evening. I'm not so sure Yehuda Amichai is the same guy, at least not in his poetry. But yeah, both of them speaks about same thing, about people fighting because of different differences in race and religion. And in that way, yes, they carry the same ideology. I believe Yehuda Amichai is more secular, while Manto is more, he's coming from the tradition of India. And I think he mentioned in one place that when he's writing, first of all he writes Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So he was, though he was drinking wine, he was a very religious person in a way. So he's coming from a different point of view. His humanism is different from that of Yehuda Amichai. Yehuda Amichai was definitely very secular.
Yes, please.
My question is also for you. I've read Manto in English, and I've always felt that the translation can never actually do justice to the original because the flavor is always lost. But then it is the only way to make it reach to a larger population. And I think it's great that you've made it accessible to the people of Israel. But I just want to know what were the difficulties that you've faced while translating, because there's a huge cultural difference. I mean, just...
I think that the biggest question about Manto was an argument that I have with the editor. What will be the the style of the language, whether it's going to be a very common daily life language or it's going to be a very high language. I think in Urdu, what I believe as a reader, maybe some of you can say better than me, that there are no clear differences between slang, high language, daily life. Like, it's mixed, and in Hebrew it's very, very clear. So the question was, if Manto would have written in Hebrew, how to write him. And yeah, it was actually...
Fine all the way.
So you can write, I think Ghalib is another example. He could use a slangy almost and then use a beautiful language. So the question is how to, I think this was the challenge of the translation. I went for mixing, and when you mix some stuff, not other people may not be so satisfied. But I tried, and translation is translation. It's not the original, and I hope I did my best.
Hi. My question is to Urvashi in particular. Anyone can sort of have a say on it as well. I believe that short stories are primarily about good, truthful emissions. In your appraisal of Manto or some of his sexist works, could it be that the function of his sexist depictions, misogynistic depictions of women, could be to ignite or amplify a feminist response? I mean, the more reality is dirty or a writer is inapproachable in his portrayal, the more we must attempt to remedy what is wrong by what is conceptually truthful and just.
You know, I don't think that Manto, when he was writing, and I don't think any writer, when he or she is writing, have in their head a particular kind of reaction from a specific kind of audience. I think the motivation of Manto's writing was obviously the anger and the despair that he felt at what he saw around him, and all of that cumulatively makes its very powerful appearance in Toba Tek Singh. You know, you can sense that there. So I don't think he had people like me in mind, and I think that, you know, had there been, because the difference between a writer writing and a reader receiving that writing is a huge difference. Had I read Manto, had I been around at the time and had I read Manto in the 50s, it would have been a very different reading and a very different reader from who I am today, with the 35 years of the women's movement behind me, and also with, I feel that there is a whole lot of other literature by other writers, you know, like Intizar Hussain, like Zahida Hina and others, which addresses, Krishna Sopti, addresses similar questions and addresses them with as much depth and compassion. Manto doesn't have compassion, but addresses them with depth and compassion, and somehow does not get talked about as this, in the same kind of evaluation of a writer. So I also feel that's part of my whatever discomfort or whatever it is. You know.
But for once, I mean, you can't say that this is assuming that he was manipulative. He wasn't.
No, I want to add one thing here. Say Krishna Sopti, other writers, they took time to write. Many of their partition works came much after the partition. Manto was almost reporting day to day.
Yeah.
And in that lies his power, you know. It was, and that's why it's so, it reached
Vivid,
straight,
yeah.
you know. It's like a bullet.
Yes.
This isn't really a question, it's more of a comment. I mean, and I'm speaking from a very academic position. I've taught Manto's Toba Tek Singh and Dog of Tetwal in Delhi University to English honors students for some years now. I think, you know, Bhishan Singh's death at the end and turning into the village which he has lost forever is, and calling him Toba Tek Singh at the end, it's the only way he can reclaim that lost Watan, by dying. And in that, and even in Dog of Tetwal, the death of the dog in Dog of Tetwal and of Bhishan Singh here, it's a rejection of the whole idea of the nation state itself, not just of partition, but the idea of the nation state, of laws and, you know, drawing lines on a map, and that being the only definition of a person.
Yeah.
You know, so what would you have to say on that?
No, he definitely believed more on in the person than nation state or you know where where you live or which country. I think he was very much concerned about person. I think the great amount of humanity in his writing, where he especially in this story and a couple of more, and some of them are brutally sort of dissect everything. But stories like Toba Tek Singh believes in individualism, the human at the center of everything, and everything around it is incidental. That's what I feel that he believes in.
We have one last question.
Excuse
There
me?
were lots of questions
Yeah.
at the back. People have been
Yeah, I have the mic. So, this
There are
is
two or
for
three.
Nirupama ma'am in particular, but it could be addressed by the panel. Don't you think by eventually changing his name in the story to Toba Tek Singh, Manto is pointing out to the people's attachment to their homeland or their communities and how it becomes a part of their identity, making them nameless or faceless, creatures as such of their respective communities? Don't you think?
You're very right. You're very right. And in Punjab, the two Punjabs, it's very often that people carry the name of the village with them. Our chief minister is Prakash Singh Badal, so and so. They carry the name of the village with them. So, and I've one autobiography of a Naxalite writer, which I translated. It's when he's in the jail and the police asks him, what is your village name? He tells them everything, but he says, no, never tell the village name to the police. So village is also something very sacred.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
You're very right in that. Yes?
Good evening, ma'am. My question is
After him.
my question is to Urvashi ma'am. Ma'am, I just want to know because आप अपने आप को एक महिलावादी लेखक कहलाना पसंद करती हैं, सिर्फ इस वजह से आपने दो कहानियों को अपवाद बताते हुए सादत हसन मंटो जैसे 20th सेंचुरी के बिगेस्ट राइटर को आपने सिरे से नकार दिया बिकॉज यू डोंट लाइक हिज राइटिंग. आई मीन
नहीं, ये वजह नहीं है. ये वजह नहीं है.
Because the other reference which Prasun sir has given, that Sugandhi thing particularly, so I think, and because the Mahila Vaad, wherever this Vaad thing comes into picture, the whole thing is wrong itself. Because let's say this Hindustan and Pakistan, there was also a Vaad, and again if you say that because
देखिए,
the Mahilawadi...
Okay, आपका प्रश्न मैंने समझ लिया है. मैंने अपने आप को महिलावादी नहीं कहलाया था. प्रसून जी ने और निरुपमा जी ने कहा कि ये फेमिनिस्ट रिएक्शन है और मैंने उस पर प्रोटेस्ट नहीं किया क्योंकि मैं एक पोलाइट वेल ब्रॉट अप महिला हूँ, तो मैंने सोचा कह रहे हैं तो कहने दो. लेकिन मैंने अपने आप को महिलावाद नहीं कहा. और जैसे आपको हक है कि आप किसी लेखक का काम पढ़ के उसको अपनी तरफ से समझें, उसी तरह मेरा भी हक है कि मैं किसी लेखक का काम पढ़ के उस पे एक तरह से उसे समझूं. So, the whole thing about writing and reading is that the greatest liberation of writing and reading is that writing can be written from many different points of view and reading can receive that writing from multiple views, and that reception can change over time. So don't take that as a given. It has nothing to do with the feminism doesn't come first. I'm first a reader and then a feminist and then a feminist reader.
My question is both to Nirupma and Prasun. So I would request both of you to answer. There are many writers in India.
After this, your question after this.
Yeah.
Mike will come to you.
Sorry. My question is both to Nirupma and Prasun. There are many writers both in India and Pakistan who claim, like Intezar Hussain. Sorry, I'm here, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There are many writers like Intezar Hussain in Pakistan and many in India who claims to be as close to Manto as far as short story writing is concerned. So in your opinion, whether it's in India or in Pakistan, who comes close to Manto? Or do you think that Manto was the product of a particular time, so it's almost impossible to produce another Manto?
It is always, I think, Manto, we can't produce another Manto, but we have very powerful literature on partition or communal violence by different writers. And in Urdu, Joginder Pal is a writer who has even used the metaphor of a madman in his Dera Baba Nanak. It's a madman who takes a child and leaves the child across the border. Uh, Mohinder Singh Sadna in Punjabi has used the metaphor of a madman. You know, in madness such as the killings of partition and the very partition itself, it becomes quite usual thing to select a madman to speak on the situation. So different writers have done that, but probably no one has been able to meet the popularity of Manto, and there are reasons for it. Manto paid a price for it well within his lifetime, with penury, alcoholism, madness. That kind of possessed writers are few. You know, they burn themselves as they write. Manto was one of them. And he was very much a part of the mental asylum that he was writing from. Whereas other writers, many of us, we are survivors. We don't allow the, maybe he was too sensitive, and there are many people like that. We are survivors. We don't, writing this kind of naked, you know, truth also must take its toll on your mind.
He died at the age of 43.
43?
22 years
So-
of work, and so much of work in
So much
that
work.
has to have a lot of intensity.
This, the way, you've put it very well. The intensity with which he lived, it's not, and wrote, is not very easy to, you know, copy or to do that. It comes from within or not.
To answer that, I don't think anybody comes that
Yes.
close to Manto.
My question.
No.
No, you can't.
He's been
I've
asking.
been
No,
You'll
it's
get
not
it,
that
you'll get
he's being democratic. There are people.
Give him a chance first.
नहीं वो पहले से पूछ रहे हैं.
Last 15 minutes, I think. So. I suppose my end.
Okay, let him speak without mic. Yes. Very, very true. I'm glad
Very
you
good.
spoke without the mic. Now,
Very good.
with the mic.
My question is to Mr. Anji. For me, the Manto has presented the religion, politics, division in very ugly, means in a real terms, in a very ugly manner. Means I read him and when I was in school, very young, and I could not understand him. When I read him again when I was in college, it gives me a chills in my spine. It's this story Thanda Gosht. So my question to you, Mr. Anji, are you translating just the literature of Manto, or are you going to translate the message of Manto to your own society?
It's a good question. I'm going to translate the stories. The reader will decide whether there is a message or not. It's
Good for you.
There's one more question at the back. Let this be the last question.
My question is, calling Manto vulgar or disturbing, can it be called being a hypocrite?
What? No, I would say no, it's not being a hypocrite. But you might not, many people might not like to see the life or represent it the way he does it. So to each his own. I know I wouldn't give such a label of a hypocrite to a person who's disturbed.
But definitely this is, the writing has been as uncomfortable for people to read aloud. I mean, she wanted to talk about the Mutari thing. She could not get into the real language. So the fact is that she has written long back, still, even today, we find it uncomfortable to read it exactly the way it is written.
Yes, please.
Could you please recommend one favorite, you two, please, Prasun and Nirupama, just one favorite short story of Manto for us?
was
Very
so
difficult.
first you-
Of late I'm thinking Sogandhi is one. It just stirs up my sort of imagination a lot.
I like Kali Salwar very much.
Sogandhi is the character actually. The Hatak is the story.
I will go for Boo. Smell, odor.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Boo.
Yeah.
Boo is good.
Yeah. Boo is good.
I don't have a favorite. I'm a publisher. I have no favorite writers or anything. No, I mean, I think each one has a different, I find it very difficult. If you ask me to choose a favorite book from the ones I've published, it would be impossible. Really. नहीं ऐसी बात नहीं है पर आप अगर ये कहना चाहते हैं तो कहिए मैंने किताबें छापी हैं मैंने हर एक किताब पढ़ी है जो मैंने छापी है शुरू से अंत तक
No, but what is the problem to criticize Manto? This is the beauty. He's
No,
a
I
great
think
writer,
it's-
and we are criticizing also.
Great.
No?
On that note,
Can
we
I-
should, I think.
So,
You don't need to
I
be
want
insulting.
say just 2-3 lines. You know, my experience at Wagah border, you said it's all sort of, Bollywood and loud music and, India, Pakistan, Zindabad. Like I had a very lovely experience. We went to Pakistan and we actually crossed the border at midnight. My husband is a diplomat, so we had a diplomatic passport. So we crossed the border at night, 12 o'clock. So we were dropped on the other side, and these Pakistani soldiers who actually, during the day, during that ceremony, they actually shout at each other, they bang their feet and everything. But they brought us through no man's land to the Indian border, and they literally like as if handing over us to the Indian side. But while they were doing it, we were just crossing, coming to the other side. Both of them, the Indian soldiers and the Pakistani soldiers, they actually greeted each other. They sort of, how are you, So it's actually, it was so, sort of, I was standing there and I literally had tears in my eyes, like, people to people, they still love each other, they care for each other. And it's actually, when they shout at the border, it actually reflects, what kind of relationship is going on politically and even cricketically. Cricket, the game of cricket when it's going on. I mean, if India-Pakistan is sort of playing, so it's, that emotion, everything comes through so very well. And sometimes it's really very touching, not disturbing. So
sometimes that's.
Yeah.
So as we go, maybe 2 lines of a poem and we part.
I don't know which one to read, but I'll read one of the poems. मैं अधूरी सी किसी धुन में अधूरा गीत बुनता हूं अधूरे रेशमी धागों में उलझा हूं अधूरा मैं अधूरी सी किसी धुन में अधूरा गीत बुनता हूं अधूरे रेशमी धागों में उलझा हूं अधूरा तुम मुझे जब टोकती हो तो अधूरा तुम मुझे जब टोकती हो तो अधूरा तुम मुझे जब सोचती हो तो अधूरा छोड़कर सब कुछ बिखर जाने की चाहत है अधूरी और घुट घुट एक लंबी सांस में सागर को पी जाऊं ये हिम्मत है अधूरी तुम मुझे जब टोकती हो तो अधूरा तुम मुझे जब सोचती हो तो अधूरा छोड़कर सब कुछ बिखर जाने की चाहत है अधूरी और घुट घुट एक लंबी सांस में सागर को पी जाऊं ये हिम्मत है अधूरी मैं अधूरी सी किसी लय में अधूरी ताल देता हूं अधूरे से सुरों का शामियाना है अधूरा मैं अधूरी सी किसी धुन में अधूरा गीत बुनता हूं अधूरे रेशमी धागों में उलझा हूं अधूरा तुम सिसकती हो अधूरा मैं पिघलता हूं अधूरा तुम सिसकती हो अधूरा मैं पिघलता हूं अधूरा लिपटता हूं सिमटता हूं सुलगता हूं छलकता हूं अधूरी रात के डर से झगड़ता हूं अधूरा तुम सिसकती हो अधूरा मैं पिघलता हूं अधूरा लिपटता हूं सिमटता हूं सुलगता हूं छलकता हूं अधूरी रात के डर से झगड़ता हूं अधूरा मैं अधूरी सी किसी चादर में लिपटा सांस लेता हूं सुबकता हूं अधूरा क्या मेरा विश्वास तुम पर था अधूरा क्या तुम्हारा स्नेह भी था वो अधूरा या हमारा ये सफर शुरुआत से ही है अधूरा और अधूरे को समझ पूरा जिए जाना है हमको ये वो रेशम है जिसे हरदम सिए जाना है हमको ये वो कच्चा है वो तुरपन जो किए जाना है हमको
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand to all of our speakers, and thanks again for joining us.